without further ado, Alexander.
Thank you, Tina. Okay. So, hello, everybody. It's funny actually to stand here because when I started out with this topic, I got a phone call from somebody who wanted to work with me, who was in Geneva, and I live, just around the corner. And we were talking, and he said, "Oh, I'd like to fly you over." I asked, "Fly me over? From where?" "Well, from California." I said, "Why from California? I live just beside you." That guy thought that ideas like business models can't come from Switzerland. Ideas in entrepreneurship, they can't come from Switzerland. But you know what? Actually, there are some ideas that come from Switzerland that now with the business model topic that we're going to talk about, it went across the world. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this idea of cracking the code of entrepreneurship, some tools that we can use to talk about business models, design business models, and ultimately to test business models, okay? So I think that until, now, the tools that we were using were pretty basic. So you have a lot of smart entrepreneurs, I'm pretty sure. Who's an entrepreneur in the room or wants to become one? Okay? Who've done a lot of great stuff, but with tools that might not be 100% appropriate, okay? So one tool that you've definitely heard of is the business plan, right? You might have heard of this sentence here, a famous quote from Steve Blank: "No business plan survives the first contact with customers." So the first thing you want to do is you want to burn your business plan, okay? Because it's a waste of time. Now, planning as such is not wrong, but you've got to plan the right thing. So plans are worthless, but the planning part is important. Now the question is, what do we plan in entrepreneurship? Do we plan how the business is going to look? No. What we actually plan is the search for the business model. And once we've found one, that's when we start executing on it, okay? That's a pretty big shift from what we've been doing until now. We usually think the idea is the most important at the beginning, but it's what you give, the shape you give the idea, how you evolve the idea until you figure out, hey, this could really work, and then you execute, okay? That's when you start spending the money. Now, I'm pretty excited about tools, conceptual tools, but I think we can push it even further, have software-supported tools that can help us in our thinking when it comes to business models. So I don't think we'll ever replace the creativity, the art in entrepreneurship, but I do think we can enhance this thinking, okay? So I'll go into that a little bit. Now, I want to talk about three things. First, the concept of business models. So some of you might know the business model canvas. Who's ever heard of the business model canvas? Okay, quite a few. Who's never heard of this? Okay, half. So I'll show a little video of what this is about. And then I'll show you what I mean with tools. Tools of entrepreneurship. And at the end, I'll go a little bit into the process. Okay, three things. Does that sound good? Okay, good. Seeing the reaction, I should actually leave the room. Okay. So first we're going to talk about the concept. And I'm going to talk about business models, but the question is, hey, what is a business model? What is a business model? I ask this question everywhere in the world. Brazil, Singapore, wherever I go. And guess what the answer is? There are probably as many answers as people in the room. It's like having a set of very many different languages. It's a word we all use quite a lot. Who's never ever used the word business model in this room? Okay, you'd probably be the fourth person in an audience that I talk to. So nobody, right? You all use the word business model. So you should know what it means. But actually it turns out that everybody has quite a different mental model. That we use the same word, but some talk about strategy, some talk about channels, some talk about profit, product, technology, process. And what would be more interesting is if we would have a better discussion about what the business model is, okay? So if you watch a team talk about business models, say we need to find a business model for our product, or an existing company might say we need to reinvent our business model. This is how the discussion is going to look. So he's going to talk, blah, blah, blah. What? Blah, blah, blah. What? So smart people in the same room using a lot of words but not understanding each other. And this phenomena is called blah, blah, blah. Okay? There's a great book that came out by Dan Rome. You might have heard of Dan Rome, who wrote The Back of the Napkin. His last book in September it came out. It's called Blah, Blah, Blah. What to do when words don't work. So I think when it comes to business models, words are not enough. We need to be able to, A, have a shared language, but a visual language that allows us to sketch out business models. Because when we sketch them out, when we map them out, that's when our discussion becomes clear. Okay? That's really important. So when I started out with this topic, that was what I wanted to figure out. How would a language look like, a shared visual language to talk about business models? And I started a PhD on the topic. And I got a PhD for this title here, The Business Model Ontology, a Proposition in a Design Science Approach. And I already hear some people laughing, right? Because you know that to get a PhD, you need to use words like ontology, right? Then you get a PhD. It's as simple as that. Okay? Now, the funny thing is, I put this online, and people started reading it. They downloaded it. They used it in companies, which means, OK, there's something there that people really think is interesting. Now, nobody told me when I started my research and I wrote my PhD that the dissertation would be read. I would have maybe done a better job. Okay? So PhDs are usually made to write, and then you have 3 people who read it. But here, this went around the world. Now, I thought, hey, these ideas are interesting for people. So you know what? I want to write, in a bit naive way, I thought, I want to write a management bestseller. Now, if you know the publishing industry, you know that there's 1 million English books coming out every year. Of those 1 million, 11,000 are business books. So nobody's waiting for 11,001. Nobody. So what we did is we tried to publish the book with an innovative business model, and we actually did turn it into a bestseller. So it's about 250,000 books now circulating around the world, 23 languages, and even more important, people are using this stuff. Okay? So this is how the book looked. Who has a book? Who has a business model generation book? Okay? For those who don't have one, there are a couple in the back after the lecture. You can take them with you. Okay? First come, first serve. So the heart of the book, for those of you who know it, for those of you who don't know it, is this visual language that I was talking about. The business model canvas that allows you to sketch out existing business models or business models that you want to create. Okay? Now, what is this language about? It's about 9 building blocks. 9 building blocks that allow you to describe or design every business model you can imagine. So ultimate possibilities, thousands of alternatives. So let's watch a little movie, 2 minutes, that will explain what the business model canvas is. Because if I explain it, it will probably take 15 minutes. So that's why we made a movie, so you can get a quick overview of the business model canvas.
An organization's business model can be described with 9 basic building blocks: your customer segments, your value proposition for each segment, the channels to reach customers, customer relationships you establish, the revenue streams you generate, the key resources and key activities you require to create value, the key partners, and the cost structure of the business model. But it's not sufficient to just enumerate the 9 building blocks. What you really want to do is to map them out on a pre-structured canvas. This is what we call the business model canvas, the tool that helps you map, discuss, design, and invent new business models. Let's briefly go through the 9 building blocks, starting with the customer segments. These are all the people or organizations for which you're creating value. This includes simple users and paying customers. For each segment, you have a specific value proposition. These are the bundles of products and services that create value for your customers. The channels describe through which touchpoints you're interacting with customers and delivering value. The customer relationships outline the type of relationship you're establishing with your customers. The revenue streams make clear how and through which pricing mechanisms your business model is capturing value. Then you need to describe the infrastructure to create, deliver, and capture value. Your key resources show which assets are indispensable in your business model. The key activities show which things you really need to be able to perform well. The key partners show who can help you leverage your business model, since you won't own all key resources yourself, nor will you perform all key activities. Then once you understand your business model's infrastructure, you'll also have an idea of its cost structure. So with the business model canvas, you can map out your entire business model in one image. This works for startup entrepreneurs just as well as for the most senior executives.
So 9 building blocks, pretty straightforward. The individual building blocks are not new. Probably most of you know every piece of it, right? If you looked at business a little bit, you have an idea of what this is. But the important thing here is that we have all 9 on one slide or on one poster if we print it out. And that we understand how they all fit together. So we get the big picture understanding. Not just the product. For the engineers in the room, products, great products are becoming a commodity. It's the combination between great products and a great business model that's going to keep you ahead in competition in the coming decade. So what you really want to understand is how all these pieces fit together and what the best business model could be for your idea. And that means you need to search for the right business model. Okay? So let's look at an example. We're going to sketch out the business model. And when I say sketch out, I literally mean sketching it out with Post-it notes. So now you know why you have Post-it notes, because we're going to work on a little case together. Okay? So if we can start distributing the canvas, that would be great. So the idea is that we map out all the different pieces. And I'll give you some basics here. You never write on a canvas. That's a crime. Okay? Because God invented Post-it notes. Okay. I don't have any stocks in 3M. But what you really want to do is you want to, for every building block, you want to use a Post-it note. So these are a little big, so I made them a little bit smaller. And why one for each idea that you have, for each customer segment, for each channel? Because then it's mobile. You can put it up, you can discuss, you can take it down. Or if you mapped out a business model, let's say you have a product idea. You map out all the pieces. You want to ask yourself, oh, I have 2 segments here, but what if I took this one away? What's the impact on the rest of the business model? Can I take a channel away? Can I take resources away? Follow me on this? So it's like a balloon. Somebody told me, hey, the business model canvas is like a balloon. You push in on one side, it will have an impact on the other side. So you can see the relationships between the pieces. Okay, so let's work on a little case. And it's end of the day, so I thought the best thing we could do is talk about coffee. Okay? And we'll talk about coffee because it's a commodities business and there's some interesting stuff going on in this business. Okay? And you can learn from any type of business model that has nothing to do with the domain you're in, because that's the interesting thing. It's not like with products where one product maybe will not relate to another from one industry to another. But you can learn from the amazing business models that are out there. So we'll look at one. And I'll start with a little question from Switzerland, where I come from, because I have the data there. Question to you is, how much less or more do you think Swiss households pay for coffee consumed at home? So if you look at the last couple of years, do you think we pay 20% less, 20% more for coffee consumed at home? What would your guess be? What do you think? Some guesses? Plus 50. Okay, courageous guess. Others?
Minus 20.
Minus 20. It's a commodities business, right? Pretty straightforward. Other guesses? Plus 200, right? I mean, it's Stanford, Silicon Valley. We need to be a bit courageous here, right? Take some risk. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I need Post-its.
You need Post-its. Okay. How could you be in here without Post-its? That's correct. Good. Turns out that in this commodities business, there's one company that could get us in Switzerland and now all around the world, they get us to pay 600 to 800% more in a commodities business. That's amazing, particularly if you know that we Swiss, we don't throw money out of the window. Okay? That's why we have these big, secure banks. Okay? So the reason is not George Clooney either. So George Clooney stands for one brand except in the US. George Clooney stands for Nespresso. The anecdote is that the US is the only country where George Clooney does not advertise for Nespresso. Because if as a TV actor, as an actor in general, you advertise, it means you're on the way down. Okay? So he doesn't want to do this in the US. Now, what did Nespresso do? So who's ever had an Nespresso coffee? Okay? Wow. Okay? So they're already acquiring entire US. That's pretty cool. At the heart of it is a technology. They were the first to invent single portion coffee, where you have a machine, you have aluminum pods, you take the pod, you put it in the machine, you press a button, and out comes a very good espresso, okay? With crema on top. It's like in Milano, okay? It's not like in Finland or other places in the world where espresso is a bit doubtful. So the results that they had are pretty amazing. So after 2 decades, it's still one of the fastest growing businesses in the Nestle empire. Nestle is the biggest food company in the world. It has about 30% growth rates still after 2 decades for the last 11 years. Okay, I know if you're creating a startup and you want to be Google or Facebook, whatever, you'll say 30%. Ooh, okay? But if you're a company that exists for a while, 30% is pretty good if you continue that all the time. And it represents now a business of about 3.2 billion US dollars. Question to you is, and this is one product line, okay? Machines, pods. It's the main business. Question to you is, I want you to work a little bit on the business model. What do you think are the core components of their business model that made them so successful? So you know the technology, machine, pods. But what is it in the business model that turned them into such a successful company? I'll give you about 6 minutes to work on this idea in groups of 2. So work with your seat neighbor, use the post-it notes, sketch out what you think was relevant, crucial in their business model. Let's go. Okay. Okay. Let's do this together. Let's do this together. Okay, you didn't expect you'd have to work at this time of the day, right? But you're dealing with a Swiss here, okay? Now, what did you come up with? Some ideas. What's crucial in their business model that made them so successful? What do you think? Anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
The revenue streams. So my guess.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So my guess is that they would likely sell the coffee maker itself at cost and at a potential loss, and then basically make that back and selling the coffee itself to the customer over the next fall.
Okay, so get the machine into the market and then earn from the pods, right? Repetitive sales. Great. Great. What else?
For a value proposition, you can get a premium coffee without having to leave your house.
Right, and you have different flavors.